I think it was around. I mean, I think it was February of 1991. I think somewhere around there. But I'm at Las Vegas, which you're going to learn is a trend here shortly. I'm at Las Vegas, single ship. It was one of those where, hey, here's your plane. You're going to go out, control air. We'll see you in a couple hours. Single ship out of Las Vegas, Air Warrior exercise, I believe, which is, and I think I was facking for some A7s. And these ranges are southwest of Las Vegas, as opposed to the red flag ranges, which are generally northwest of Nellis Air Force Base. So I was out there in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, and had some A7s dropping just practice bombs on some targets. And I remember again thinking, man, this is a blast as I'm marking targets and controlling the range. And after they've left, I'm just visually coming back home, and there's a Mount Charleston is in between the ranges that I was in and Las Vegas, and it seems like 20 miles about west of Mount Charleston, I had a engine fire on the number 2 engine with a visible fire. I put out the fire with whatever the checklist did, feathered the prop. Now an OV-10 single engine is not an overpowered airplane, so I began a descent, a gradual descent, because I was above the single engine service ceiling for the day, and I'm not sure if I'm going to make it over Mount Charleston. And if I'm not, I'm looking around. The closest landing field is a Nevada brothel that has a 3,000 foot strip in front of it. And if I can't make it over over Mount Charleston, then that's my plan. I'm going to turn around and we could easily land an OV-10 at 3,000 feet. We'd all done short field practices with, you could reverse props, and even without that, you could land it easily in 3,000 feet. Just slam it on and get it stopped, no problem. So I get the fire out. I've got my hands full. It's busy. Get the fire to go out. I'm making some radio calls to it. There's another airplane, an OV-10, about 20 minutes ahead of me. I tried to get him on the radio. Never could make any contact, and I cross Mount Charleston by about 500 feet. So I make it over the mountain, and visibility is clear in a million. And I'm essentially on a long straight in to the east runway at McCarran Air Force Base. McCarran International Airport. I could go to Nellis, but I'd have to overfly the city of Las Vegas, and I don't know what's wrong with my airplane. I don't know why I had the fire. I've got some Willie Pete rockets on board, so some White Phosphorus rockets on board, and some BDU-33s, a couple of practice bombs still on board. So I've got some munitions. I don't really want to fly over the city of Las Vegas with these munitions. So my call sign was Mako. I don't remember the number, but it was Mako. So I finally get in touch with Nellis, McCarran Approach, declare an emergency, and tell them I'm going to come land on their east runway. And they're not at all happy to have me show up like that. They're landing to the west, so I'm headed east. They're landing west, and they tell me that, hey, we're landing to the west. And I said, well, I'm landing to the east. They don't like that. Can you go to Nellis? They asked me, and I said, no, I don't want to overfly the city, and I'm closer to McCarran. About 30 miles out, they asked me again, can I land to the west? And again, I say no, and they give me holding instructions. Hold west of the runway, 10-mile legs, right turns. And I just went, no, I'm landing and landing to the east, and here I come. So get ready. At some point I called the tower at Nellis to tell them, just to give them a heads up. Hey, this is Mako. I've had an engine fire. It's out. I'm going to land at McCarran. I'll call you on the ground. So I've made that contact so that they're not wondering where I'm going, what I'm doing. And then maybe 10 miles out, they asked me, McCarran says, can you take runway 01, or do you have to have 07? And I said, no, I want 07. And then I came back and I said, say wins. Because now I go, well, I'm on a straight in. I got a big, 10,000 foot runway, 300 feet wide in front of me. That's where I'm going to land. But they want me, they really like me off that runway. So I said, say wins. And what they came back with was this phrase, okay, into 07. meaning, okay, you're landing on runway 07, right? But what I thought they said was because I just asked for the winds. I thought they said winds are 120 at 7, negligible. In other words, there's not any winds. So I just continued on to runway 7. About the time I crossed the threshold, maybe it's 70 feet or something like that, I dropped the gear. Now remember, I have a big crab in because I've got a turboprop feathered engine out here on my right side. So that already introduces a pretty good, healthy crab, right? But at the time I crossed the threshold, I dropped the gear because when you lower your gear in an OV-10 single engine at that pressure altitude, at that temperature, you're going to land. So I dropped the gear when I was ready to land and immediately went wing low into the wind, So, and pretty soon, within seconds, I've got full left rudder, full opposite aileron, and I am drifting off the center line. Okay. And I realized I'm not going to land on the runway. So I landed in a ditch on the south side of McCarran Airport, and that ditch is a pretty healthy ditch. And the left tire came off, and that caused a stub. Oh yeah, that caused a stub. So now I turn, and I'm sliding across the infield. Now it's away from the terminal because I'm on the south runway, so I'm headed. Not going to hit anybody, but I see another ditch coming up. The OV-10 had a good seat. Had a Martin Baker seat, which has been getting a lot of attention lately.
Oh yeah.
After had a Martin Baker 00 seat. Mm-hmm. But an ejection's a million miracles, especially on the ground.
Yeah.
So I saw this other ditch coming up, and I put my hands on the ejection seat, and I mean, I remember thinking, and then I didn't eject, and I hit this other ditch that knocked the gear off. Knocked the bomb racks off. I went up on a wing, like I thought it was going to tump over kind of thing, and then it came back down, settled down very hard, as you can imagine. And I kind of look around, and first thing I think is, okay, I'm alive, which was a bit of a surprise.
Yeah.
And then I see the flames, and it's on fire. The plane is on fire. So I open the canopy, run away bravely. Already cars are stopped on whatever the street there is south of the airport. And I remember, oddly enough, I remember taking off my helmet to look less conspicuous, right? While everyone's sitting there looking at this, they probably put two and two together. Let's see, here's a pilot, here's a burning airplane. I bet there's some correlation there. The ambulance came out, as you can imagine. They'd already been called because I declared an emergency. They came out. And they saw me and they said, well, we thought we were going to pry a corpse out of that thing. And I go, nope, I'm fine. And they said, well, we need to check you out. So they took me to the ambulance. They put a blood pressure cuff on. They start checking. And the guy looks at the reading and he shakes his head and goes, that can't be right. He does it again. And he says, your blood pressure is 220 over 140. I said, well, give me a minute. Wow. I said, it will go down. I promise you. I just landed that airplane that's on fire. It will go down after this. Not long after that, a couple of minutes later, I heard the unmistakable sound of a large airplane go around, a DC-10 on a short final. I had to go around because the airport manager was crossing the runway without permission, without clearance. So he crossed in front of a DC-10. So it goes around. I mean, it's chaos. Cats and dogs living together. Just that planes going around, burning airplane on the south side of the runway, and. I got on his phone. He had a phone with a cord on it attached to his car. And I called the squadron back at Nellis to let them know I was fine. But what I discovered was when I called the tower, when I hit the ground and started sliding across the infield, McCarran Tower called Nellis Tower and said, hey, Mako 81 just crashed on short final. And Nellis asked them, did the pilot eject? They said no. So now Nellis Tower calls my squadron and says Mako 81 crashed and he didn't eject. He didn't get out. So that turns into the squadron commander calling all the squadron pilots in, including my roommate, and going, Deacon just crashed. He didn't eject. We think he didn't survive. Mm-hmm. So that meeting is going on. right? So if you know standard jokes about fighter squadrons, now they're deciding who gets my stereo and who's going to call my girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And while that conversation is going on, I'm on the airport manager's phone. And I call the squadron, and a very somber sounding captain answers, whose call sign was Preacher. He goes, I go, hey, I need to speak to Willie Pete, who was a guy I'd been out with the night before. Hey, guy, I need to speak to Willie Pete. And he goes, who is this? I go, this is Deacon. He goes, wait a minute. We heard you were dead. I go, no, I'm fine. Yeah, where'd you hear that?
Absolutely fine.
That's
Yeah.
what I learned. That's what I learned. They all thought I was. They all thought I was dead.
Wow.
So uh, it turns out the winds that day were actually direct north, directly out of the north, 25. I think it's 25 gust 30, which is outside of limits for an OV-10 with two engines, much less single engine. So that plane was not going to stay on that runway.
Yeah.
But didn't learn that for a while. Went through the mishap board, and they're pointing fingers at me and everything else. And it was actually this old crusty, believe he was a POW in Vietnam named Dickie Vaughn, who figured out, because initially Nellis Tower said, well, the winds weren't that strong at the time. Well, here's the reading. And what Dickie Vaughn figured out was they were looking at, because they were landing to the west, they were looking at readings from the east side of the airport. Because I was landing to the east, my winds were on the west side of the airport. And when they looked at the winds from the west side, they were indeed out of limits for an OV-10. I would have never figured it out. Dickie Vaughn, God love him. I think he passed away several years ago, but he was just pretty sure a POW in Vietnam, a major in our squadron, doing safety stuff. And he's the one that figured all that out months and months after the fact.
Yeah. I mean, Christ, what a story, Deacon. Jesus Christ.
It was a handful. It was a
Yeah.
handful. The good news is I was flying again. Had a couple of days in safety board, and I remember my flight commander says, "Well, when do you want to fly again?" He said, "We're thinking maybe beginning of March, or it was like 3 weeks." I go, "Well, what's wrong with tomorrow?
Yeah, get straight in there.
Let's
Yeah.
go." Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm ready to go back up.
Yeah,
And we did.
absolutely.
Ended up flying again a couple of days later, and it went on from there.